Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Once again, this is Dr. Soul Brother coming on the scene with a remedy to help cure your ills. Hope everybody's doing well. Um, I don't know how long I'll be, but I'll get straight to the point here. First, I want to talk about um, the American flag versus the Confederate flag. The American flag versus the Confederate flag. First, I want people to respond in the comment section because this is an important topic because there seems to be some confusion about the and some misgivings regarding the American flag. But I think some things need to be laid out very clear. There is a big difference between the American flag and the Confederate flag. First off, going back to slavery, um, well, you can go before that. You go into the real brief. The founding of America, the American flag replaced the British flag because, as you know, this was a U.S. was a British colony until the War of um, the American Revolutionary War of 1776. That changed things, and um, the American flag was erected. Now, of course, the American flag then was different from the American flag as we know it today, but nevertheless, it was representing a new nation. Like any society, when there's a new nation, you have a different flag. But here's the point: you look at during Civil War that took place in the South, you had the Confederate Army, the guys in gray with the Confederate flag, and then you had the guys in blue. Like for example, if you watch the movie Glory with Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington, which dealt with the 54th Regiment, um, they were fighting against slavery, whereas the Confederates were pro-slavery. So the Confederacy represented the Confederate flag, or rather, the Confederate flag represented the Confederacy, and the American flag, red, white, and blue, the stripes, stars, and all the rest of it, they were against slavery. Now, is it true that there were things that happened? For example, when the country was founded, it was founded during slavery. Yes, no doubt. And the things were done under the American flag without a doubt, no question about that. That's not even an argument or a debate, I should say. But to look at the American flag compared to the Confederate flag, it takes critical thinking. One flag represents uh, some nuance, if you will. The other flag, there is no nuance. The Confederate flag, there is no nuance. Whereas the American flag, there's nuance. If you're talking about um, the American flag against the backdrop of uh, imperialism, that's one thing. That's negative. And things that were done on American soil, like slavery, for example, that's negative. But at the same time, this is where critical thinking becomes critical, becomes crucial. That same American flag represented freedom against slavery, the opposition of slavery within that context of the Civil War. So, guess what? If I had been a slave or a free person and had been a part of the 54th Regiment, I would have unapologetically and proudly been with the red, white, and blue because I'm fighting against the Confederacy, the guys in the gray. And by the way, let's be clear, this thing about the Confederate flag has nothing to do with somebody's history per se. What it is, uh, those white folks who want to erect the Confederate flag and rationalize and justify the Confederate flag, what you're doing, you are trying to hide your racism under the guise of this is representing your history. Now, what am I eventually leading to? I'm leading to this. There's this notion right now that a black person who erects the American flag is somehow a fool, a jackass. Or do you have that? Yes, you do. No question. I've run across those. But understand those people who fit that profile, they are the ones who are doing what? Their so called patriotism in that context is in line with white nationalism. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that uh, the American flag represents Americans, irrespective of color. In other words, what I'm saying outright is the American flag, the this American society is not a white man's country, nor does that flag only represent them. If you are black, brown, red, yellow, it represents you as well. If you are an American born and raised, and or if you become a naturalized citizen under the 14th Amendment, something that folks are trying to mess with right now, but that's a whole nother conversation. Let me move on. When I hear somebody like Louis Farrakhan say that the Muslims, he did a thing where, a while back in 1985 at the Final Call building, say that Muslims respect the American flag because it is a flag of a sovereign nation that is worthy of respect. But we cannot pledge allegiance to this flag. We cannot pledge allegiance because this owes no, the flag that is, owes no allegiance to us or the God of heaven. And then he quotes Elijah Muhammad saying, "You are not a citizen." And then you, Mr. Farrakhan, have the unmitigated gall to say uh, that um, Asians, Mexicans, or Latinos, which some would refer to, blacks, etc., will never be Americans. Okay, I'm going to address that right now. That's 1985. This man, this deceptive bastard, had the takes a lot of hubris, man, to take your behind to Iran in, I want to say 2017, 2018, somewhere thereabouts. Somebody can look it up and speak in Iran during a press conference. And when he was asked about chanting "Death to America," and he had his drawers all up in his bunches. Yeah, Mr. Farrakhan, I'm talking to you again. You had your drawers up in your bunches talking about, no, I will not do that. I will not do, and you're going to accuse this reporter of being sent there by someone to ask you that question. No, the reason why he asked that question, because you are on record, mister, of trying to disabuse black folk in America. Those of us who have roots here. Unlike you, you might be American born and raised, but you ain't got no roots here. Because both of your parents, neither of your parents were from here. One is from Jamaica, your daddy. The other one, your mama, is from Saint Kitts. Um, you're on record as trying to disabuse us of our American roots here, and that takes a lot of hubris. And it also takes a lot of hubris in that same press conference to say America during your conference say America's mine. I'm more of a patriot. Um, the policy of my country um, to get most of their policies of. I'm waiting. I'm like, hold up. Oh, my possession, my. Oh, it's your country now. You know, more of a patriot. Patriot, really? Okay. And then you say, then let me go back to 1985. You quote Elijah Muhammad saying, "You're not a citizen." Well, guess what? It's interesting. Here Elijah Muhammad was with, I think, a third or fourth grade education, saying that we're not citizens, and that's no different from Louis Michal, who had a black owned bookstore in Harlem. Out front, you can watch in Eyes on the Prize, where he said, all over America, there's not one citizen of the United States. I defy Dr. Bunch or Martin Luther King to tell me that they are citizens of this no good country because integration will never happen. Um, he went on to some, but here's the thing. When you hear a person say that we're not citizens, I have to say, that's an individual, or those are individuals who are in desperate need of a crash course in high school civics. Because even if you don't have a college education, you learn in high school that we are citizens of the United States. But we have to remember something. Both Louis Mashal and Elijah Muhammad had limited formal education. So these folks who walk around and say, well, yes, we're not citizens. Wait a minute, hold up. How can you possibly, again, even if you only went as far as high school, say that we're not citizens? Because you learn that in high school. And we won't even get into American government in college. But again, college, university aside, just high school, you learn that. So if you talk to somebody like Dr. Greg Carr, who has a law degree, he would have to confess that we are citizens. I would challenge somebody like Dr. Greg Carr or anybody else of that background to deny that we're citizens um, of this place, of this country. But moving on, um, Farrakhan claimed that he's here not only to break up black folk relationship with Jews, but this so-called whorish relationship with America. Whorish. So such language is designed to make you um, not want to have any kind of sentimental outlook as it relates to America. Now, here's the thing: to reduce the United States to uh, racist white folks in the South or white racist institutional racism at large throughout the country is high. Not only is it problematic, it's highly fallacious. Okay, and so when you see people like Louis Farrakhan, when you see people like, frankly, Dr. Greg Carr, who um, wants to deny their American identity, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Um, and so, but getting back to this whole thing versus the thing with the American flag as well as the uh, Confederate flag, is this. Fast forward when Louis Farrakhan in the early 2000s. See, what you don't understand, this guy's been a problem for a long time. Even though he is not my topic, he's central to this whole discussion regarding the American flag versus the Confederate flag. Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. I need y'all to hear me. Y'all hear me well. Hear me. This man in a black church in the early 2000s, Ben Chavis and others were there, and he was suggesting that you should be more upset with the American flag than the Confederate flag. So hold up. So he's on a cape for the Confederate flag. Do you not understand, mister, that black folks in America have a knee jerk reaction to the Confederate flag? And not only that, it was not until after, I believe it was the Brown versus the Board of Education 1954 decision where the um, Confederate flag was erected. Because for a while, you didn't see the Confederate flag. And this needs to be noted also. You know, I did a show regarding Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, and one of the things I pointed out was the movie that they were heavily involved with was Buck and the Preacher. Well, when you look at Buck and the Preacher, even though Buck and the Preacher is a fictitious story, it deals with the black exodusters. That's a part of our history. Um, Black folk uh, post Civil War who left the South, traveled Midwest and out west because of the racism and the harassment of racist whites. I think it needs to be noted that some of those folk, not all necessarily, but a lot of them, a segment of the, and I think that needs to be studied. I can't tell you the numbers, but there was a segment of the white population who were harassing the black folk, whose background was in the Civil War, who were on the Confederate side. So the thing is this: I just find it interesting that Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, who were born in America and had no roots here, similar to somebody like Louis Farrakhan, they understood that. But he wants to cape for the Confederate flag and suggest that the American flag is worse than the Confederate flag. Well, here's the deal, mister, and I'm talking to you again. You ain't got no roots here. So you don't qualify and you have no business delving into Black American business. By that I mean Black American business of Black folk in America who have roots here. You have no roots here. And so, since you want to disabuse Black folk of our um, American identity, you are out of line and you have no right, no business whatsoever. None. Now, the thing is this um, this thing with Elijah Muhammad talking about you're not a citizen. Well, that's where he would get caught up in this whole thing about so-called American Negro. So-called, meaning if you're so-called something, meaning it ain't the real thing. Here's what ended up happening. Both Elijah Muhammad as well as Louis Farrakhan benefited from America. Uh he has thrown shade on the American flag. Don't you find it interesting that Elijah Muhammad died here in America? He never intended to go anywhere. Nowhere. And this so-called nation of our own, that was, you talking about a pie in the sky? That was a myth. Never intended to. He lived high on the hog in a big old fat mansion, the same mansion that Louis Farrakhan lives in, which, by the way, is a uh, exclusive white neighborhood today. Check it out. Okay. Then I fast forward where in 1990, in I believe it was in Chicago, Louis Farrakhan talked about visiting St. Kitts, birthplace of his mother. And he met with the Prime Minister of St. Kitts, and he felt that he owes a debt to St. Kitts for producing his mother. Okay, no problem there. And he's told that he is not only emotionally tied, but constitutionally tied. And Farrakhan claims that he himself is a citizen because of his mother. I'm curious about that because his father was from Jamaica and his mother's from St. Kitts, so he just automatically get um, citizenship by way of his mother and not of his father. And then, obviously he's an American, he has American citizenship because he was born here. And then says that he can get a passport as well as his family, children, grandchildren, etc. And they can vote, live there, and get property. Well, it is highly unlikely. I need you to hear me, fam. It's highly unlikely that the Farrakhan family, his descendants, will be trying to live there. And you know he's not trying to live there. He's 90 something years old. He ain't trying to live it. You know why? Because he can't live there like he can live here. That's why. He wants to disabuse us of our American identity, throw shade on the American flag so that we don't have any sense of sentimentality of any sort as it relates to America. And this thing about how we shed blood here and all of that, and we did. But he doesn't feel this stuff the way we do. He doesn't. Because frankly, he has contempt for black America. Contempt. That's a whole nother situation. But he went back and saw the house that his mother was born in and offered a retreat for the believers and followers to see another side of life, as he say, to get out of America, and offered an all expense paid trip to Africa and asked the question, wouldn't you like to go home? Go home, huh? Well, guess what? You ain't trying to go home. In fact, you know why? Because you're already home here in the good old US of A. That's why. And as far as Dr. Greg Carr goes, Dr. Carr, you need to lighten up. You need to lighten up. We saw you on the program on the Roland Martin show the other day where they were discussing the whole thing with uh, the Bill Pickett rodeo, and um, you're quoted as saying Beyonce, everyone in the rodeo, and everyone in the entire world can keep that red, white, and blue flag. Dr. Carr, that's a problem. That is a problem. And the only person on Roland Martin's show who gave you some pushback was Lauren Burke, who said that she was thoroughly enjoying the image of Beyonce on the cover of her CD with the American flag on a horse looking powerful. So, that unfortunately, Dr. Carr, you have been influenced by others who are like Farrakhan, others of that ilk, and made to feel ashamed of their American identity and by extension their ethnicity, meaning African American. That's your ethnicity. So, what did old boy say in the movie Boys in the Hood? Whether you like it or not, you're an African. You're an African. Well, like it or not, you're an American. Okay, like it or not, deal with it. Deal with it. So, I, for one, am sick and tired of these folks throwing shade unnecessarily on the American flag, on the American identity. We're sick of it. You've gone too far. And there is a big difference between the American flag and the Confederate one. So when you see a person, black folks have a knee-jerk reaction when we see that Confederate flag. We do not have a that kind of reaction when it comes to the American flag. And those who do, that is because unfortunately they have been influenced by folks of that ilk. So what is driving somebody like a Louis Farrakhan who has no roots here? That's what's driving him is his Caribbean chauvinism that he brings to the table. That's what's driving him. That's what's driving him. He wish he could be in the position that you and I are in, and that is roots here. That's what he doesn't like, and that's what's driving him. And as far as Dr. Greg Carr, brother man, you need to get it together. You need to get it together and stop, for God's sakes, having a negative impact, influence on our people who are vulnerable. When a person, just on a human level, when a person is vulnerable, you are susceptible to bull crap. That's what you're dealing with. So yeah, there is a big difference between, and I tell you what, if you were transported back in time and you were, say, in the Civil War, you know good and well that American flag would look pretty good, wouldn't it? Compared to um there needs to be a more nuanced outlook as it relates to the American flag. There's a whole lot of stuff here in the United States that uh, that is wrong. But at the same time, there are things that are right. And guess what? Some of these people who have fled their societies, they're coming in and they are aware of the ills of society. They may not know everything when they first get here, but they are aware before they get here of that there are ills, racial strife, etc., that exist in America. But the fact that some of them remain here and in some cases become naturalized citizens, it indicates, it should indicate to you that what they're saying is, in spite of the problems, I've weighed things on a scale, and I look at how my country that I left or fled from is I'm better off casting my lot here than elsewhere. And I'm going to say this in closing to my black brothers and sisters: don't you ever in your life, and I'm saying this to people who are older and younger, don't you be ashamed of your American identity. Don't you be ashamed of your ethnicity, African American. Do not allow folks to try to shame and guilt you of your American identity to the point where you try to hide your American identity under a bushel. And let's be clear: when you see our people who were in the civil rights movement with American flags in their hands, they were making a statement, and their statement was they were trying to become full-fledged citizens. Okay, and also What, as Dr. King said, be true to what you said on paper. And Dr. King was somebody who gave pushback to his society, to his country. And he was a true patriot, a true patriot. Unfortunately, we have been dealing with folks who purport to be patriots, but they have been nothing but fake patriots. That's what we've been dealing with. So let's understand this. No, when I step out of this country, as I have done with my American passport, um, I do that and I do it proudly. And I don't apologize for that. You don't have a problem, Greg Carr, when you find Jamaicans and other people, Trinidad and etc., waving their flags, in spite of the fact of the ills that exist in the society. But you know that there are ills in the society, but what it in their society where they come from. Here's the deal. You have concluded, and not just you, others of that ilk have concluded that that culture over there is superior to the Black American culture over here. That is what you're dealing with. That is what you're dealing with. So, um, folks need to back off, leave us alone, and to the rest of our people, bask, bask, bask in your Americanness, bask in your Black Americanness. And when people are riding on a horse in a rodeo who are Black, and they have the American flag in their hands, that does not necessarily indicate that they are in love with America when they and yeah, that they're in love with America and they are willing to embrace America and its racism and other ills. No, they're embracing their American identity in spite of, just as you have other people who've left the countries where they come from and still may be in love with it and have an emotional attachment in spite of whatever madness and chaos that exists presently. So don't you dare, I don't care who it is or who you are, whether you have roots here or not, you don't have a right. Don't you dare jump up in our faces and try to disabuse us of our American identity. You know fully well, Dr. Greg Carr, uh, Louis Farrakhan, and others who try to disabuse, but Umar Johnson, I'll throw you in there as well. Um, when you go to when you're in another country, you go through what? The American embassy because you're Americans. And that's how you're viewed outside of these borders. Period. You know it and we know it. So that's it for now. You have any comments? Feel free to comment in the comments section. Hit the like button. Please subscribe. Pass the word to others. And as I always respectfully end my show, until the next time, God bless.